Hey guys, what is up and welcome to a new League of Legends video. So it has been 3 weeks since patch 6.22 has hit the PvE servers, the preseason patch, so one with all of the huge changes, the assassin rework, the jungle rework, and all of that good stuff. And it just so happens that this big patch is going to be hitting the live server in just a couple of days, if not less. So just like we do with every single patch rundown video, I'll be going over all of the major changes and the things that you really need to know when going into the new patch, because well, there is quite a lot to cover. So I'll do my very best to try and cover as much as possible, all of the important information as quick as possible as well. So if you end up enjoying this video or finding it useful, don't forget to hit that like button to show your support. But without further ado, let's get right into the changes. So without question, one of the biggest new changes, big changes coming to the patch of 6.22 is definitely the assassin update. If you are unaware, there are 4 big changes happening to Katarina, LeBlanc, Rengar, and Talon, and 6 smaller changes happening to Akali, Echo, Fizz, Kha'Zix, Shaco, and Zed. So let's go through a very quick brief rundown for all of these changes. Katarina now essentially just requires a lot more skill to play, and there's a lot more thought process behind actually executing her abilities. She now works around throwing daggers and picking them up off of the ground, which in turn procs a spinning type ability that does damage, which is her ult W, and for the most part, other than that, she is fairly the same. And she's probably the 3rd strongest of the 4 major assassin changes in my personal opinion. Following Katarina, we also have LeBlanc, which for the most part is still fairly similar in concept, but now has a passive which procs upon attacking them with a spell, which will in turn proc again if you hit them with another spell, dealing bonus damage. Combining her Q now with a passive will actually give her a pretty impressive amount of wave clear, because the Q will bounce to all nearby targets, and she also has a 2-part ultimate, one of them which will just simply create a mimic of her somewhere around the map, which will cast the last most recent spell you have used to try and trick your opponents, while also having the second part of it where you can mimic any one of your QWE spells while in turn also empowering it. So of the 4 changes, she has to be probably the weakest, because I feel like it's going to be fairly easy to play around her ultimate once you're used to it. So other than that, she's very strong and does provide some serious wave clear now, but definitely probably the weakest of the 4. Next up, we have also Rengar as a part of the big changes to the assassins. Now again, Rengar is still going to be in concept very similar, go into stealth mode, which is now camouflage, not actual invisibility, meaning that if someone on the enemy team is too close to you, they will see you. His ferocity now only goes up to 4 stacks, not 5, but he gets a free stack essentially just using his passive to jump on a target if that's the first thing he has done to the target. His Q ability is now a 2-part attack type ability, which is somewhat of a skill shot, and his W now will give you HP back when you use it while taking damage over the last second or 2. His ult will also offer a free critical strike on one of the targets you jump on. So his burst combo is still very much there if he's fed, and especially late game, he will still do an insane amount of damage. His Q scales very well, and he still has that one-shot potential. In my opinion, he's probably the 2nd strongest of the 4 big changes, but moving on to the strongest one and the final one of the big 4, we have Talon. He now has a passive where if you hit someone with 3 spells, you will now proc it with an auto attack, causing them to bleed. His Q ability has 2 parts to it, one that's a melee critical strike if you use it in the face of the person, or the second part, you can use it from range and jump at the target and deal reduced damage. His W and ult are pretty much the same, but his E ability will now pretty much let him parkour over terrain across Summoner's Rift, making it next to impossible to actually catch him. So when you combine the parkour and just the amount of damage he can do and his level 2 burst with Ignite, I have to say Talon might be the strongest of the big 4. And then we have, of course, the 6 assassin champions, Akali, Echo, Fizz, Kha'Zix, Shaco, Zed, which have smaller changes happening to them, which I will not go over too specifically in this video, but very briefly, Akali can now teleport with her W, Echo just scales better with AP, Fizz's ultimate now scales based on range thrown, Kha'Zix has new bonuses to his evolutions, Shaco now has boxes that spawn upon death with his ultimate, and Zed's ultimate now steals AD from the previous target he has killed with Deathmark, assuming that that target offers more AD to Zed than the previous one he's already killed. Alright, so now that we got all of that out of the way, let's move on to the next big change happening to patch 6.22. There's going to be a new stealth shimmer effect, which is just very quick to talk about, but also very important. So there are 2 types of stealth now, camouflage and invisibility. Invisibility is, as it sounds, you're just simply stealth and you can go anywhere and be beside anyone and they will not see you unless you're beside a turret or something. But then there's also camouflage, which is pretty much what Evelyn currently is, where if you're too close to someone, they will see you. But other than that, you are pretty much just invisible and no one can see you other than towers and champions nearby. But now this new shimmer effect is when you damage a champion that's invisible or camouflage with an ability, so maybe like a skill shot like Ezreal's Q, a brief image of them will appear to kind of give you an idea as to where they are. It's just the outline of the champion, not the champion themselves, so you can't actually click on them. But it does let you know maybe what direction they're facing or where they're potentially going, and it just shows you that you have indeed hit the champion. So this is definitely going to be very useful when trying to track down one of these sneaky champions trying to get away. Another huge change coming this patch are the ones happening in the jungle, whether it's to the actual smite itself, the camps, or something like the plants. So let us first talk about Smite. It will now restore 100 HP and 10% of maximum when used on monsters, because now red buff will actually no longer give you HP back when you smite it. On top of this, Smite's recharge rate has been increased to a charge every 90 seconds from 75. The ammo charge starts at 1 minute and 40 seconds instead of 1 minute and 25 seconds into the game, and like I said, smiting camps and getting that extra buff, like red buff giving you the HP, the blue buff giving you mana, or maybe the raptors giving you that vision when you smite them, this no longer exists. On top of this, there's also plants now being added into the jungle, and there's 3 types of them. The first one is called a blast cone, which is the red plant. When you auto attack it, it pretty much acts like a Ziggs W. All the people around it will get knocked up to a certain area around that plant, but you can use this to go over certain walls and even make some sweet escapes. Next up, you have another plant called the honey fruit, which spawns in the river. When you kill this one, it will drop a bunch of fruit on the ground that you can pick up, and it gives you HP, but you also get slowed as you're picking them up. So this one is actually pretty useful because from what I've noticed, the HP you get from it is actually quite good. So if you're maybe someone like a top laner and you push in the lane and you want to get a bit of sustain going and the plant has just spawned right under you in the river, this is going to be very useful. But the final plant is going to be the Scryer's Bloom spawning in the jungle as well, where you auto attack it and it just gives you vision towards an area into which you attack it. This one is very useful to try and maybe spot someone now, maybe spot the enemy team, see what buffs are up, see what camps are up. But from my playtesting on the PBE server, I have noticed that these plants, they weren't as impactful as you may think. I mean, yeah, they definitely have their uses and every now and then they're pretty damn useful, but at the end of the day, they don't have the biggest impact in the entire world. They just kind of are there when they are there and you pick them up, and they do help every now and then, but it won't just completely change your game around. But this is only from playing on the PBE for just a bit. Once people start getting used to them and start actually thinking of sweet strategies, these plants can definitely have a big impact. And the final thing related to the jungle is how all the jungle monsters and camps will be scaling. So now it will be scaling based on the level brackets within the game, and per level bracket, so levels 1 to 3, 4 to 6, 7 to 9, and 9 plus, the monsters in the camps will just get stronger, getting more health, more resistances, and more damage. The blue and red buff camps no longer have those small little monsters beside them. The raptor camp now has a total of 5 small raptors. The gromp no longer poisons and spawns 15 seconds later than the other camps. And the large and normal Krugs now on death split into smaller Krugs, which take a bit longer to kill and honestly is kind of annoying to kill as well, but it is about 150% more rewarding than other camps. There are also some changes happening to the mastery trees, where some of them are being added, others are being shifted around, and some of them even being reworked. Now, there's just a little too much to talk about for this one specifically because I did make a video talking about the mastery changes solely, so if you want to know more about that, then definitely make sure to check out that video. I have a link to it down in the description below. But for the sake of this video and not making it too long, I'm going to go ahead and sort of skip over the masteries, but there are some new changes here that I recommend you read out and find out. Next up, we also have a rework happening to Alistar. His passive and his E ability are getting some massive changes, so let's start talking about his passive first. It now states the following: Alistar gains a triumph stack whenever he stuns or displaces enemy champions or nearby enemies die. At 7 stacks, Alistar roars, healing himself for 20 HP and his nearest ally champion for 40 HP, 3-second cooldown. He cannot get triumph stacks while triumphant roar